Today is Tuesday, December 10th, 2019. This is a meeting of the Acushnet Board of Selectmen. Could I ask you all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda says minutes of September 25th, 2019. Those were not distributed to us, so those will not be approved tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
And I'll second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, aye. Meeting mail, we've got a letter from Nancy Johnson, Pinky's Realty Corp. DBA Blue Lantern Cafe, requesting a change of hours. Saturday and Sunday, 7 a.m. I know Mr. DeRoche, you met with him earlier today. You want to report on that?
Well, I met with both potential buyers of the property, and we discussed the process going ahead that they're going to need to follow. And at this time, I just make a motion to table this issue since they still don't own the property. The transaction hasn't followed through yet, and they did agree to that. You know, they would wait and resubmit the letter to change the hours of operation until they own the property.
Okay. Is there a second on the motion to table?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? That passed. Just general comment, though, we're receptive to hearing their request to change the hours for, they want it open for breakfast, and
That's correct.
in general, you know, once they own it, we're perfectly willing to talk
That's
to them,
correct.
but it seems premature at this point to consider any change in hours on a property they don't own yet. So,
That's correct.
okay. Appointments, we're sort of on time. I thought I started late. 5:05, we've got an appointment with Verizon and NSTAR both. Going to share a new proposed pole on Middle Road. I'm sorry, NSTAR is a separate hearing regarding Allison Drive. So why don't we start with the pole on Middle Road? Anyone here to make a presentation on that? Yes, sir.
Should I approach? Or?
Absolutely, yeah, please, to the podium, sir.
How you doing?
Fine.
Richard Foreman, representing Verizon New England. This is for a new joint-owned pole. It's going to be set on Middle Road, and this is for a new solar farm. It's 89 feet southwest of existing pole 110 and 67 feet northeast of existing pole 109. It's going to be labeled as pole 104 over, or 109 and a half over 104 rather. 104 is just the route number that the poles are on. Joint owned between the electric company and Verizon. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Can you describe the distance, because what we have is a drawing, it says 67 feet from the existing pole, 109?
Yes.
Is that accurate, 67 feet? Because I was out there today and I actually walked 67 feet, and it seems like 67 feet, and then on the second pole from that one, you got
89 feet.
89 feet?
Yeah.
And I only got to like 70 feet, so there seems to be a large discrepancy in the measurements that are provided here. And the only reason why I'm bringing it up is because depending on if you went 67 from this existing pole, I'd be concerned about the sight line backing out of the driveway.
Okay.
And so any further up from 67, I think you'd be in that sight line. It could create danger.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely a concern. It's possible that the stake could have been moved by accident.
What stake?
I
I didn't see anything in the ground where the pole was going to go. Is there something there?
There should be, yeah. So I'm actually curious if the stake might have been. Usually when we set a new pole, we stake the location.
I didn't see it.
It's possible that the
It
stake
started
could have
raining.
been.
I mean, I was just walking out the
Yeah,
distance, so.
yeah. Oftentimes, especially in inclement weather, the stake could have been, during the snowstorm, could have been blown over or, something like that. I can actually, when I leave the meeting tonight, I can actually go take a look at that and, see if I can spot the stake out there.
Which one's accurate? Because I don't think you have if you had 67 and the 89, I don't think you have that between the two poles. So which one's an accurate number? Is it moving in 67 feet from the southerly pole?
Well, yeah, it's supposed to be 67 feet northeast of existing pole 9. And like I said, this is a new service for the solar farm.
Mhm.
But if it is an obstruction to a driveway, yeah, I mean, that should be addressed. This personally isn't my job that I engineered, so I'm only here for the hearing. But if that is a concern with a driveway and a sight line and, you know, being an issue, then yeah. I
It's
mean,
on a curve, and it's,
Yeah,
you know,
no, that
in
definitely
in
is a-
cold weather, it could be a dangerous curve, right?
Yeah.
Black ice and above. It
Oh,
doesn't-
absolutely.
It doesn't take snow to make it that way, and if you're back,
Right, absolutely.
I don't know, because there was a lot of people working right out front. They
Mm-hmm.
got a big square hole out front at the end of the road, so I couldn't get a car inside of the driveway that's there to put myself in that position and back up and see where, you know, base 5 feet in where the other poles are, so.
Other neighbors that would be impacted by the location of the pole here to speak on it? I know that-
Well,
Could you approach the podium and
okay,
please?
I know what,
Hi,
okay,
welcome.
Mr. Costa, and I'm here with my husband. The pole's gonna go right in front of my house. I don't know what this is gonna look like, I don't know where the solar panels are going. So,
Yeah, the solar panels are there, so if you
They're
can't see
there?
them now, you won't.
oh, I don't, okay.
They're down the road in the back, so.
Oh, they're in the back.
So you're not gonna see the solar panels.
Because when I got
The
the
pole's
registered
absolutely
letter,
gonna be
and then I got 2 in the mail, I says, this is gonna be important, I gotta go check. And I had no idea where this pole was going until I got this
Could
letter
you describe the
2 days ago.
location could you describe the relationship of the pole to her home, maybe? You could figure that out, are you comfortable with?
I don't know what kind of pole is it gonna be?
It's-
Is it
The telephone, just a regular
just like a
telephone.
Yeah, just
telephone pole?
just a
Oh,
regular
okay,
telephone
okay.
pole, yep, like
All
the
right.
existing ones that are out there.
Okay.
I assume this is gonna have some electrical conduits that are gonna run to the solar farm. It won't look any different than the poles that
Then
are
the poles from
currently.
the, okay, that's, just I wanted to know.
And it'll be on town property,
Yep.
it won't be, it
Okay.
will not be on your personal
Right.
property.
Yep.
Okay.
And you
thank
live at your address?
567,
567 Middle Road?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're
so
across
it's
the
gonna be
street.
right in front.
Yeah, I think this will be on her side of the road.
It could be on my side?
I don't think so.
No, it's on
Is
the
it off?
opposite side.
No, opposite side. Okay, it's
Yeah.
opposite
She's on the opposite
All right.
side.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
567.
So-
What is the relationship to the...
Ms. Leary, approach the, please.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. So that pole that you're discussing is right at the edge of my driveway. So I had the same concerns because what happens is when I back out, that's where the snow plow ends up plowing all of that snow. So now not only am I gonna have the snow, I'm gonna have this pole as well. And so you're right, I thought of the same thing as far as when I'm pulling out, will that affect my sight of view? And where do I stop to look? Because now I got those oak trees. So that was one of my concerns with the pole. But
I
they
don't know.
originally were gonna put it where they dug between that spot and where they dug the big huge hole this morning,
This
today.
big square in the.
Literally, it was going to be 3 feet from the road. I wouldn't even be able to make the turn into my driveway, or anybody pulling down into Pine Hill, well,
How
Parker
close is
Lane.
this to the driveway?
It doesn't show it.
No, it doesn't show it.
So, but they, I believe we discussed it with Tom, and they moved it to that side of my house, right on the corner. My other concern is, DigSafe hasn't gone to that pole yet, and I have town water hookup piping there. So if you guys are digging and then it ends up interfering with my town water, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah,
So-
no, absolutely, that's definitely a concern.
Right.
Any digging that's done for the utility poles is always dig safe.
Right,
It probably just hasn't been walked out yet, or may have been for that pit that they were digging this morning.
right.
I don't know where
But
the driveway is.
if obviously this pole is a concern, the sight line of your driveway, that needs to be addressed.
Right, right. But
Could you
I,
show us where the driveway is on
Yeah,
this?
where's the
on this
driveway?
map?
There's like a little map that they've given us.
yeah,
I
let's,
kinda just drew it
I don't
in.
know. I'm gonna be honest. Okay, so here's the pole. which there was a marker, but it kept getting knocked down by trash barrels and everything else, and then I found it on the street, right. So my driveway is here,
She pulled the stake.
right here.
Wait, okay, well, before any...
Right, exactly. I picked up the stake and put it off to the side because it kept ending up on the road. So here is my driveway. And then here is the...
That's gonna be the road going in.
Yep, there's another pole there. So this here is my driveway, right? And that's my basketball court and my garage. But here is my driveway. So originally, they were planning on putting a pole here. And I believe Tom and Manny down the lane, we had a discussion, we can't put it there, we can't turn into our driveway, or no one's gonna be able to get down into the lanes.
Yeah, that's fine, but that's
So
not
then
where
they
they're
staked it
proposing,
here.
they're proposing it
Right.
right, and I just can't see.
There's water lines, hookups, town water line hookups there.
Well, what I tried
Well,
to
there'll be a dig- there'll be
do,
a
what I,
dig safe.
what I tried to do is walk from this pole to see 67 feet, to see where
Right, it's right
land
at the
relationship of
yeah.
all of this, right? So it's gonna be somewhere in this area over here, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one, this dimension doesn't line up either, so I'm just concerned about the sight line coming out and backing out, that's all.
Yeah, it's a good 8 to 10 feet when we staked it from the edge of the driveway, so there shouldn't be an issue with sight lines, but there's always a little leeway to move left or right.
Well, that's why I'd like to see where the marking for the pole is. If you had something there, I mean, I could stand him or Mr. Cabral in the spot, I could sit in my car and pretend I'm backing out. If it's not an issue to me, it can't really
It
be an
was there
issue.
yesterday and it was moved.
Well, we've had it staked.
That's fine, I was there today, this afternoon, so.
You know, it was moved and put on the other and taken out, so we didn't want to put it back and
Well, is there any way that you can have Verizon? I mean, I'm not.
Oh yeah,
I'm
we
in
can
favor of
restake this, no problem.
voting.
I just,
Yeah.
again,
An
like,
exact spot, not an
Yeah.
estimated spot, an exact spot of where this is
Yeah.
gonna go.
Yeah.
And then we could put, like, I could at least go down and appease myself. There was guys all working, I couldn't even pull in your driveway today because of the way the equipment was.
Why not? You should have done what everybody else did, just drove down my driveway to go down the lane.
So all I wanna do is make sure that it doesn't.
I'm not kidding you, I
it
I
doesn't-
drove down there this morning, was it me that was?
Was it?
I didn't drive in your driveway, I drove down,
Oh,
I drove down the
We had
lane.
several people kind of drive down my driveway and cut across.
Oh, that wasn't me, no,
And I'm like,
I wasn't, I found the right one.
So I'm just not comfortable voting right now without me being sure that I can back out of somebody's driveway without not.
How much flexibility do you have in relocating this pole? I mean, if it's,
I
could this
mean,
be moved 5 feet over to, if it became?
I would think so.
Yeah, even in, like, you know,
Or in-
I'm concerned more of the depth from here, from the
Well-
curb to here, because if you need to, you can move it in 2 or 3 feet and it'll wipe out the sight line, we'll be fine.
Right, well, like generally, we keep a minimum of 3 feet off the edge of the road, that's a minimum.
Right,
And
but on the
then-
curve, that
but-
comes into
right,
effect. the
Right,
curve.
and then, but then you also have to take into consider if we're staying in town property versus an easement.
So 7.5 feet is what you have from the curb, that's the layout of the road, so
Okay.
we got, the town owns 7.5 feet on
Okay.
each side of Middle
So
Road.
you've got flexibility.
Okay.
Move it a few places.
Yep.
So I would like to see the location go out there.
Oh yeah, I absolutely
We met
agree.
with Verizon when they put that down and we measured the distances. We came out, we looked at all the sight lines.
I need
We
to
have
go
a trust-
myself,
you know,
for me to be able to vote in relationship to this particular matter.
Well, yeah.
Other than that, I'm opposed.
I mean, the stake keeps disappearing. We've
The stake
staked it
is there,
3
it's
times.
just
That's all
on
right.
the other
You have
side.
Verizon go out
Yeah.
there, you can
Yep.
paint the
Yep.
grass like everybody else
Yep.
does with orange spray
Yep.
paint.
That's what happened over the summer when they staked it. Every time I cut the lawn, I cut the circle out.
Yeah, no, I'll make sure
But you put it
that,
spray
I'll make sure that
painted.
it gets staked with a white and orange Verizon stake and make sure it's in there good, so especially now with the weather and plowing and everything. So we can coordinate and have it restaked and come back.
Mr. DeRosco?
Is this something you're gonna proceed with immediately?
Yes, I have.
We need to,
Well, that's what I'm asking, that's my question, will this be done Thursday, Friday this week? I mean,
what,
you know.
the actual pole being put in.
No, the putting it there, and then I would assume the
sure
Board
that
of
we can
Selectmen
check
are
it.
gonna go there and look and see and make a determination right at that time and say, hey, if we need to move it 3 feet this way to create a sight line, or if it impedes the sight line, you move it
Whatever, whichever way you
in a
need to.
general direction, is
Yeah,
that?
we can do it this week, because it would be Verizon.
Yep.
As well as Eversource.
Ultimately, the process is, I go back to Verizon tomorrow or tonight and I say that the meeting was continued, you know, we need to find a better solution, and then it can be addressed right away with a new stake. And then a revised sketch will come through, and be put on the town.
How much flexibility is there to move it? It doesn't feel like it's centered between the two poles. I mean, could you move it 10 feet if you needed to?
It's really, you assume you guys are here for the solar farm?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, really, we need to coordinate, again, I apologize.
No, that's
Normally I
fine.
do this
I'm
type of
just-
work,
I'm just
I
asking
here for the
questions. I don't
meeting.
have the answers.
But what will happen is we'll coordinate on what works for them as far as trenching, where they want the pole placed, what kind of
How much
flexibility.
flexibility from your, how much
Eversource
flexibility?
spent a lot of time designing where the pole should be, but as Tom said, you can go 3 to 4 feet either way.
That would be probably plenty of room to move.
Yeah,
That's quite a bit. What are you talking about, a sight line, 3 to 4
Yeah,
feet?
yeah,
no, I'm just trying to figure out how, I don't want to make too much out of this
And-
issue if
and-
we've got the
right.
flexibility to fix it. I don't
If you,
want to hold it if we can move it.
if you can approve it between the two poles, we can site it where you're comfortable.
Right, as far as the middle, being in between the two existing
Because
poles,
it's not
that's of no
centered,
concern.
right?
Well,
Even
it's
if you
not, no, it's like
centered it-
20-something feet, but I'm not
Yeah,
gonna make a motion to
can
do it
move
until I can prove that that sight line is where that pole's gonna be located, not take for granted that it's gonna be moved, because I want it moved 2 feet, and nobody else does, so. Right now, I'm opposed to it until I see where this pole, the exact location of the pole is, and I can be in my car to make sure that sight line and nobody's in danger. That's all I'm saying.
It's unfortunate this plan doesn't have the driveway or the easement on it.
Do we not have any, we do not have anything showing that? No?
That's the standard sort of utility
That's-
design.
Yeah.
Right, we
And it-
can.
And it does say
That's
it's
what
out
they
of
do.
scale, the short distance is 89 feet and the
Well,
longer
that's what my
line is
concern is,
67.
67 feet, when I walked it, 67 feet's put me right, what I would to believe is a sight line. So do we move it in 2 feet further from the curb in? Will that take it away? I don't know until
Is the 67
I get somebody
feet a
else to
straight line, or
stand
does
and
it follow
pretend they're a
the road?
telephone pole. I mean, I can use Mrs. Leary as a telephone pole if I want. I was just out there by myself, there was probably 8, 10 guys out there, it was started raining, I just wanted to walk it, and I was like, first measurement's not right, let's check the second one, and
Yeah.
the distance just doesn't equal, so I'm
Yeah.
just, I can go, I have a roller thing, I just didn't have it with me to measure feet.
Can we approve it subject to a successful sidewalk where you approve it then?
I'm all set with approving anything tonight, I'd rather make a meeting for next week or whatever, we can just do this, I don't really care, but
Mr. DeRoche, would you be
Whatever he
interested in
wants to
approving
do.
it, subject to walking the site?
Subject to
So
walking the
appro-
site,
approving,
yes.
conditionally approving it, saying we're
No.
comfortable with it, subject to you and/or Mr. Gaspar and/or me going out there and saying we're okay with this location.
and what happens if we're not?
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
What happens if one of
Then
us
the
not?
approval, then the approval's not, well, I would say it's
You know.
we need 2 people not to be happy with it, to not do it, right?
Well, I think we'll be able to come to a consensus if we
I
look
think
at
we
it.
need a consensus, but I mean, should we conditionally approve this, subject to going out there tomorrow and looking at the proposed location of the pole?
When they can get it located.
Yeah, or whenever, I mean, conditionally approve it, so if
You okay?
if you're gonna go see it, you
Traffic,
jump up and down and say,
Talking about the pole.
no, I don't like this location,
And it's.
conditionally approving it now.
I'd rather not do it that way, but.
Mr. DeRoche?
I would like to go out there and look at it and make our determination at that time.
Okay, so we could bring it back next Tuesday? to-
We have a meeting next Tuesday.
We have a meeting next Tuesday, the
Next
17th.
meeting next Tuesday, this will be able to be resolved next Tuesday.
Yeah,
I mean-
yeah, I mean, like I said, if I can go back to Verizon tonight and say that this is gonna be continued, I'll just say that. 'cause it's
We
gonna
just
be-
want to let them know when
Oh,
we're
yeah.
meeting again, so we can make sure that this.
Yeah, and then
happen.
I can probably get out tomorrow, or, I can get out later this week to get it staked.
Just do a site, excuse me, if we can get the site, John Liberté for Kearsarge, if we can get, so we can actually have a site visit before the hearing on Tuesday, so we have
Right, I
a determination to your satisfaction as to where. the
Oh,
site is.
absolutely, yeah, that would.
So we're not coming back next Tuesday.
We would make sure
and-
that we were happy, we'd communicate with Ms. Hebert, our interim town administrator, and we would just communicate with her saying, I'm fine, I've been to the site, I'm fine, relay that to Kearsarge and Verizon and
Right.
Eversource.
But let's say you're not so fine with the locations that state. I'm suggesting there be a meeting on the site where if you have a problem with the sight lines,
We communicate,
we're all
right.
there.
Oh, all of us meet there.
And so it can be addressed, so we're not delaying it further and further.
I concur.
So I think that would be...
I agree to that.
I agree with
Does this rendering, does that show does that show the slope of the road? I mean, is that the road?
It does not, no.
No, so that's, okay.
Yeah, it's stated, it's
So
kind
that
of a
doesn't
very
show the true
base.
curve of the road then?
Not really, it's supposed.
All the hills.
to-
Shouldn't it?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, it's a very basic utility drawing for the
Okay.
easements.
And
So-
I'd just like to say, Selectman Gaspar does bring up a point of the safety, and for myself,
Absolutely.
I don't feel comfortable. But I
Fair.
do agree that this is an issue that needs to be addressed, right away. So.
Can we pick a time to, well, can you?
Yeah, sure. I've got a business card as well. I can leave with you guys for my information, or we can schedule
Can we
something now.
meet tomorrow?
You just need to make sure that somebody gets out there and puts the location exactly where this pole's
Oh, yeah,
going.
absolutely.
We know
Yeah,
where- We
yeah.
know where it should be. We could have put it back to the state today, but we decided not
We
to.
just want to make sure it's
We wanted to
67
tag it.
feet. Is it 67 feet? Is it going to be
Fine.
70 feet? We don't know.
If you
now.
want to pick a time tomorrow, we can have the stake done.
Yeah,
Tomorrow, we don't know what the weather's doing tomorrow.
What about Thursday?
Thursday works better.
Just
Thursday.
I'd like to move ahead. I mean, I do
Thursday,
agree
Wednesday,
that.
Thursday?
Tomorrow's supposed to be okay if we do early afternoon.
Yeah, afternoon to
1:30?
mid-afternoon.
1:30 is great.
1:30? 1:30 work?
Well,
I cannot, but I'm.
Roger,
tomorrow I
if
can.
you got a busy schedule, we're trying to accommodate
I'll let-
everything going on. Mr.
the two of you
DeRoche and I
can
will go
handle
out
it.
there, it's not really a meeting, we're not gonna,
Yep.
we don't need to post it, we're just gonna go there, make sure that, can you get that done by tomorrow, though?
Yeah, yeah, I can,
Regardless of weather. If we
Oh,
wake
yeah.
up tomorrow and there's 6 inches of snow at 8 o'clock in the morning,
yeah,
you can still get this done.
yep, yep.
You heard it.
All right,
And it's recorded on-
and we'll put this back on your
I know.
You said it.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay, so that was our,
So, tomorrow at 1:30?
tomorrow at 1:30, gentlemen?
Is that the agreement?
yes.
Yeah, I think as long as, I don't know if you need to be there, but I think as long as the Kearsarge representatives and Mr. DeRoche.
I know I have an appointment at 1, I know I cannot.
Okay.
But I don't.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's
absolutely.
gonna play telephone pole, and I'm gonna.
You'll be the telephone pole now.
And I'm, right, and I'm gonna be
You're
the
gonna
guy
stake
showing
them
up
into
for
the ground.
Christmas.
You're gonna stake
Mr.
them into the
Merritt,
ground.
Mr. Merritt?
Mr. Chairman, if you want, I can play telephone pole, and then you guys can both go back and take a look.
That
If you
works.
want, I can bring a wheel too, because we have one, Joe has one, I have one.
Well, he should have the spot, that's what's important, is where they're gonna put the pole. This
Yeah.
measurement, I don't wanna go by. I want him to, and he said he had a stake, so
Yeah.
Let's
Well, once
get
he puts a stake in, we can measure it, and we'll know exactly, because the other ones won't.
well, at that point, you're gonna play telephone pole, and we're gonna back up. And just make sure we have a clear sight line, so there's no further disruption to the project.
Okay. All right, so that's moving on. We'll put that on the agenda for the 17th, please. 510, N-Star Electric, DBA Eversource Energy, request permission to install and maintain underground cables, conduits, and manholes, together with sustaining and protecting fixtures as said company may deem necessary, substantially at the point indicated on plan number 6860 is filed with said petition. Allison Drive, review of matters presented, votes may be taken. So this is the new subdivision located, was Blaze Drive, and I don't recall the other street. I know they renamed the
When
street.
they changed the
This
name
is-
on for 2 residents, right?
This is the utility, these are the utilities that are gonna serve that subdivision. So, I guess we're approving that plan. Is anyone here regarding that project? Yes, come on up.
How are you?
Allison Drive is the new roadway, I suspect.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Welcome.
Eversource Energy would like to install a manhole and conduit on Allison and Blaze Drive. This new installation is to accommodate the new underground service for the 17-lot subdivision. This job should take no longer than a day or two, as long as there's no issues that arise. That's pretty much it.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gasper.
The PVC, you say you have 2 to 4 inch PVC pipes, and they're just stemming out from a proposed manhole.
Right.
What is that going to, and what are those PVC pipes doing? Is that to carry conduit?
That's gonna, yes, that's gonna go into the subdivision.
Okay, so that's
It's
just,
an
that's,
underground subdivision, so there's going to be other conduits that are going to be installed in that subdivision.
okay, so that's just showing
It's
us
just showing
a
what
stub.
we're installing
That's basically a stub.
for the town. We're just showing what's going to be installed on town property, not what's being installed in the subdivision, because that's a private.
Okay, understand.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the proposed request from N-Star Electric, Eversource Energy, request for permission to install and maintain underground cables, conduits, manholes, together with sustaining or protecting fixtures as said company may deem necessary substantially at the point indicated at the plan number 6860 as filed with said petition, Allison Drive, as presented.
I'll second
Second,
that.
Mr.
Second
Roche,
motion.
yes. Further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
That was quicker than the last one. All right, back on schedule, sort of. All right, so,
Hopefully we'll get a letter next week.
back to the agenda, our appointment at 5:20. Mr. Menard's here to talk about the pavement management plan review. This is something I'd requested, and thank you for, there's something in writing, let me find it. It's a document, pavement management 4-year plan. And I think what I requested this because, as you know, the town has a pavement management plan, and that laid out a plan for maintaining pavement in the town of Acushnet. And you know, our last discussion 2 or 3 months ago, we were shuffling things around in the plan. And, you know, I guess we, at that time, also identified some shortcomings with the plan. We looked at the plan and said, you know, they're telling us we're doing this thing in this timeline, but we don't have enough money in our budget to do things within this timeline. So, you know, I guess what I'd asked is, okay, let's acknowledge those shortcomings, but give us some, you know, like we have a capital plan, give us some sense of what, in your mind, our capital management plan, what are your goals over the coming couple of years to, you know, and how do your goals align with the pavement management plan? Just like some vision for what we're going to do with the roadways in the town of Acushnet, to set an expectation and not be making what I felt that the, you know, when we made the changes last time was some fairly spontaneous decisions on what streets we were doing. So, so that you've given us a document, this is not dated, but it's titled Pavement Management 4-Year Plan, and to you, Mr. Menard, thank you.
Yep. And as you see, like, we just finished, this is from last year, going into, you know, the spring of next year, which Hathaway Road, we just finished. And then we got Conduit, Homestead, Myrtle, Wilbur is gonna complete it in the spring. So, again, a lot of it's on funding. Currently, we used to get $314,000 roughly a year from Chapter 90 funding. Last year, we got $316,000, which, you know, I'm assuming when I'm doing this, we're getting $316,000.
Yeah, so there are dollars not assigned to these projects, but you're conscious of the dollars.
So, but I got the dollar numbers for you. So currently, as of October, we had $758,237.94. That's what we started with. Hathaway project came in at $408,174, just for Hathaway Road.
That's minus the 700 number, right?
Minus, yep.
That's from the-
So we have $141,000 to do conduit in the smaller streets. So that brings us down to $208,000 left over after the spring. We also have other things of crack sealing in Lake Street guardrail that are already committed through the Chapter 90 fundings, which that's another $62,000. So it brings us down to $146,000 after the spring, you know, when we finish them projects. And that's assuming that none of them projects turn into anything, you know, any
No
extra.
surprises,
You
yeah.
know. We put in 420 for Hathaway, it came out 408, so we come in just a little under.
And when
on
do
that
the
one,
dollars
which is
come in from the state?
I'm sorry?
When do the
That
dollars?
we'll see again, so now that, we won't get that, well, it'll come before July, but that funding won't be till July, so which would be
July
fiscal.
2020.
Correct, yep. So that funding, again, so now you add a $316,000 to that, which you add that to the 146. So as of July, we'd have like 463,000 roughly to work for next fiscal.
Yeah.
So, which I got Mattapoisett Road and to finish Perry Hill. But if you look at it, Hathaway Road was a little over a mile. Mattapoisett is like a mile and a half if you look at the thing. And again, it is part of the plan, but that was in the the future plan, and again, I'm kind of figuring stuff that doesn't need water mains, ain't gonna be part of the sewer, and all that stuff that was in that plan that we kind of took
So
out.
Mattapoisett on
Which
the
is another one rough, but we're not gonna be
pavement
doing.
management plan was 21?
Yep, if you see that paper, I did put it on there, so anything like that I had, it was on the plan that did. The only one that wasn't on the plan was Perry Hill, finished Perry Hill, which we did a section from Mendel to Main Street. So, and that one is getting a little rough, so I figured we're doing that end of town, we got Hathaway, I wanted to get Mattapoisett done. And again, these are ones that don't have no water, no sewer coming in the future, so them are streets that we can take care of and their main drags that need to be done. Nyes Lane was in the plan, but again, if that's something that, future sewer is gonna go there, this is another one I didn't really wanna tackle. And the funding, that's a little over a mile as well. So, if you look at it, what we're gonna have left after the spring
Nice
project.
Lane, just going back to the sewer study, Nice Lane was priority what on the sewer study?
That was up there too, that was,
Priority 2, priority 1, do you remember?
it was,
Either or.
it was in that 5-year plan, put it that way, but I think that was in
So
like.
Nice is probably...
We're talking sewer, not pavement management. He's
Yeah,
talking.
well, I'm sewer, I'm talking
Not
sewer.
pavement management. It wasn't
okay, I'm
pavement
sorry.
management, but however,
Yep.
when we talked about sewer from the library
Yeah.
down to the PD.
Yep.
Police department for everybody at home.
Yep.
If we ran that main, we were gonna stub up Nice Lane and put the stub, the T
Correct.
in there to capture anything over there. So at that point, once we were done with that phase 2, which that's
Yeah.
called in the sewer
Yep.
Yep.
study, we may end up, Dan may end up coming to the board and saying,
Yeah.
that's all gravity fed up Nice Lane, what do you guys wanna do?
What
And
was
maybe
that,
take
priority
on.
area 2? Or
2, correct.
That was priority area 2,
Two.
so...
Which
Yep.
is number
Pri-
one.
No, prior.
Which is number one.
Which
Two
is
is
number
number
one
one.
now,
Right.
and why it got switched to number one, there was several issues with number one, which is down the south end. One is a lot of ledge. 2, we gotta replace water and the sewer together, so it's gonna cost more. State highway is the other issue, so you gotta go through things, so that's
just
why
wanna
that
be
got,
realistic. If we're
that's
saying-
why,
if
that's
we're
why
saying
that got jumped
We're
from.
not gonna touch it because we're gonna do sewer line, I wanna make sure that's really something that's
Yep.
gonna happen.
We
Yeah,
can't.
well, again, see, well, because that's why you asked now for this, I would have rather waited, because maybe if this did happen, you'll know at town meeting if it does go through, if we get to that point, so.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman,
Mr.
Mr.
Gaston.
Chairman, we can't tell you whether or not we're gonna do Nice Lane or not, because we don't know whether or not sewer is gonna pass. And we
Correct.
know, we're saying town meeting, the board hasn't discussed what we're doing with the next
Yep.
sewer phase. It's not fair, I've said this numerous times in the past, and I told the people this in the past, that I would never take sewer to a regular town meeting, so 75 people from the other side of town can vote me a $20,000 bill, right? So the board needs to have that dialogue on how we're gonna do this and figure that out on our own, so, Nice Lane, is it gonna get done, is it not gonna get done? I don't know.
But it's just, we're making,
It's tough to
what
figure
we're
out.
saying is we're making pavement decisions based on
Hopefully,
sewer and water things that might happen. So we either gotta pretend they're gonna happen, and
Right.
then we gotta pretend they're not gonna happen, and then we do the roadway, or we pretend they're gonna happen and we don't do the roadway, so we can't...
Right. That's what I'm saying, we don't know.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
I know.
you know, it's, and in my opinion.
If we
again,
don't
you
think
guys-
it's gonna happen, let's do the roadway, is what I'm
Okay,
saying.
again, but in my opinion, while we're waiting, that ain't the worst road, in my opinion.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
Agreed.
So, the way, I don't mind waiting for that one, is what I'm getting at. So if we have to wait another year or two.
And
till we
2023 is
figure
not that far away.
No, so that's where I looked at Nyes Lane. But
Okay.
that was on the management plan, and that's where I came up with these.
Mr.
So,
DeRosa.
Mr. Minot? Just on the Perry Hill Road, where would that be from like Mendel Road down the hill?
right to the town line, correct.
Okay.
To the Rochester
Yeah,
town
good.
line, yep, because that never got replaced, and you can see that's all getting broken up, and we've done Gammons Road was done 2 years ago, or whatever, so,
Yep.
again, so hopefully that end of town, we can kind of.
Where was that on the pavement management? Where Perry Hill, that finishing that project, where was that on the?
That wasn't in the 5-year plan, believe it or not,
No.
that wasn't on there, no. But,
But
again, I
We
was
did
looking
Perry Hill,
at.
we did Perry Hill.
We
a few
did
years
Perry
back.
Hill, but we did, because what happened was, the section we did of Perry Hill was from, again, Mendel up to Main Street. And the reason why that was wrecked, because that was a water main that was looped, and again, that's a new water main since like '06 that
Well,
they
why do you,
replaced
Mr.
them.
Menard, why do you move this up if it's not even on the pavement management plan?
Because it's one of the roads that are bad and kind
But
of.
there are a lot of roads that are bad, there are a lot of roads.
Well, it's a
that are
main
bad.
drag, that's one of the main roads coming into the town, and that's one we don't have to deal with water mains or sewer or anything is ever gonna see that. So I'm kind of basing it on both. One, the water mains, that's all wells down the other side of Mendel. It's not, town water.
Right.
Do I see that happening? No. So that's kind of basically where I'm looking at. Mattapoisett Road, same thing. It's never gonna be no infrastructure work in there in probably my time here. So
Yeah.
these roads are bad, they need to be replaced in their main drags. So that's why I put them in my opinion. And that one wasn't in the thing, the rest I was going by.
The rest are, the rest are.
The problem with the pavement management plan, there was a few problems with it, but the problem is the conditions of the existing roads are getting worse and worse every year. So we're gonna have more frost, more heaving. We haven't done seal cracking in a couple of years. That's gonna cause more damage to the roads, I believe. So we're gonna have, what we looked at 3 years ago, 4 years ago for the pavement management plan, I believe that it's only taken 3 or 4 years for that whole plan to be tipped upside down, and we'll never keep up with it, in other words. We proved that by the financing that they structured the pavement management plan on. I think it's gonna be at best, you could look at it 1 or 2 years out and reassess after that. I mean, we gotta look at the condition. You look at a lot of these roads, they're all cracking, and you notice those big chunks that when the plows come, especially when we get to the real frost and it starts heaving, right, the road moves up and down, and these plows are catching that tow. I mean, we're gonna be in situations where a lot of our roads are gonna be bad shape.
The only thing I struggle with is we hired somebody to do this, an independent
No, and I kind of agree with you,
to
Mr.
do this
Chairman, I
pavement,
really
and
do.
to look at our roads and say, I'm gonna rate every foot of every road in the town of Acushnet, and based upon our independent evaluation, this is where we think you should spend your dollars. And for the most part, you're following that.
Yep, we're
But
trying
then
to do
we
like I
take
said,
a, we take a, but we, then we take a Perry Hill Road and we say it's not on the pavement management plan because they looked at it and said that this road's in a condition that it can be, you know, it doesn't need to be dealt with for 5 years, and we're gonna do it now and ignore some roads that maybe are in worse condition than Perry Hill Road. And I get that it's a main road, it gets a lot of traffic, but there are a lot of roads out there that, we chose to do roads that don't have any traffic, Conduit, Homestead, Myrtle, I mean, in
Well-
tough shape, but don't get a lot of traffic, so
But needless to say.
I'm trying to find some logic in what we're doing.
Okay, but the logic is Mattapoisett Road's the only road that's gonna be able to get done next year anyways. Perry Hill's out of the thing because we don't have the funding. And that's even pending that we get the 316 just to get that road done. So what usually happens and what I've been doing since I got here is we don't have 300,000, you can't even do a mile of road. So I've been waiting 2 years, you wait 200 till you got 600,000, 700,000, then you're able to tackle some streets. And that's how we've been doing. And now if you look down the following year, Hamlin Street's gonna be, and that one is a major one that really has to be done.
Hamlin needs a lot of love.
So if they do that bridge, I think Perry Hill's gonna be off the thing, and I think Hamlin Street's gonna be on it, to tell you the truth, so that's my opinion. So, to come up with a plan this early is, my opinion, it's kinda impossible. You gotta kinda, we already got the stuff for the spring, and if you guys don't agree again on Mattapoisett next year, then I can go and do another valuation after the winter.
Personally, we're not supposed to be.
Yep.
We're supposed to be saying if it's on the
Correct.
pavement management plan, we should do it. And
Yep.
so I know Mattapoisett Road, I think we should do it.
It's a tough call. I mean, I'm not, to look too far out when it comes to roads, that's why I asked for the extra money when
Yep.
Mr. Noble talked about the extra 250 coming out of excise tax to balance budgets and everything else, and I said it should be allocated towards and help offset Chapter 90, because that was its original intent, right? That didn't occur, so we only got the $250,000 for 1 year, because he took it out of overlay surplus, so we could have had that extra 250 rolling into roads, and we would have been doing a lot more, we would have been doing a better job of keeping up with pavement management plan, but we're gonna fall far behind, trust me when I tell you that.
It's not just our town, all the
No.
towns, they're very underfunded for Chapter 90. It is what it is, the towns can't afford to do it, and we do the best we can, what we got.
Exactly.
So, I mean, this is a rough plan, and I appreciate you putting the effort you put into this. And any other gentlemen, any other questions on the?
Well, I think the issue of how much money we have to spend each year is gonna determine
Absolutely.
what we can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Think out
Manpower
3
limitations as
or
well.
4 years might be
Yeah,
very
I'll just give you
difficult.
what, since I've been here, and like I said, it stayed at 314, they gave us 314,000 for a couple years in a row, And then last year, they switched to 316, so I'm assuming they'll give you the same next year. They might bump it up a little, but
Right.
it ain't gonna be, we're not getting 700,000.
It's not gonna be a couple hundred thousand.
They asked me one time, I don't know, it was probably 5 years ago, they asked me to give me them, and I told them, well, give me 2 million a year, and maybe we can do something, and they didn't give it to me, so I don't
And
know.
that's what the pavement management plan, actually, some of the years,
Yeah.
in 2023, 24, and 25, I think 24, they were up at like 2-point-something million bucks worth of funding, and that's when that company did that, and how could you do that? Well,
Yeah.
I made that argument before, Mr. Crowley, remember that? I said, we only have roughly 300, and some years we might have 600, because we don't do it in a year, so extremely difficult to do that, so, you know, that's why I say it's a tough conversation to have and make any kind of determinations now.
Mr. Mara, anything else?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Gentlemen, good? Yep, thank you.
Guys, have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
All right, back to the agenda, which I just closed. What's next on the agenda? I had it, I closed it.
Fire chief, PJPD.
Oh, he knows.
Ready.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
I
have
just hit
some,
the X, I closed it, there it
A
is.
little more detailed plans for
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So gentlemen, I am here to talk to you about the status of the long-anticipated relocation of the hot mix asphalt plant at PJ Keating. If you have driven down South Main Street in the last few months, you'll see that the brand-new silos have been erected, and construction is ongoing for the new components of the asphalt plant. It is my understanding that if it hasn't happened already, it will very shortly, that the season for making asphalt ends, and during that time, the components of the existing asphalt plant that they will be using at the new location will be dismantled and moved and reinstalled with an anticipated start date for their next season of asphalt production at PJ Keating in the spring of 2020. So there's a lot of work that is going to happen between now and then. There's the role of the local level of government, and there's the role of the state government. Both those activities are ongoing. So if I could speak first to the local role, and the regulatory authority that we have as a community. If you think of the project as a pie, several of your departments have slices of that pie. The building department, Mr. Merritt is here today, conservation, the Board of Health with Mr. Greer, and the fire department, of which I am responsible. We all have our own piece of this overall project that we are responsible for ensuring compliance with the appropriate codes and standards. And I will tell you that as of this date, we have done that. We have worked with PJ Keating to make sure that the local permits that are required are in place, that they're aware of the local standards, and as of this date, they are in compliance with those local standards. At the state level, this application for the relocation of the asphalt plant has been sent to the State Fire Marshal's Office, the Department of Fire Services. Because the quantity of combustible liquids is over the amount that's regulated at the local level, the law gives regulatory authority to the State Fire Marshal. So his team of fire protection engineers, as of this morning, continue to go through this permit. They're reviewing it from a technical aspect to make sure that the tanks that will hold the liquid asphalt comply with current industry standards and regulatory requirements. So that is ongoing. I spoke with staff today at the Department of Fire Services. They are still conducting the paper review. That will lead to a decision of whether to issue a tentative permit with conditions, or to deny. And now they're basing this purely on the technical aspects of the tanks and the containment facility. So we would expect in the next few weeks for the Department of Fire Services to make their decision and to either issue or not issue the permit. Now, just remember, please, that they're basing it purely on the technical aspects of what is being moved to that facility, erected on that facility. They will then conduct an inspection, a site inspection with their staff to make sure that all the technical aspects in the engineered plans have indeed been implemented. And the final permit would be issued following those site inspections. And it's not until the final permit is issued that the tanks are authorized to be filled. So construction is ongoing. Some folks have asked, how can it currently be built if the permit or the approval hasn't been given to the state? Building it isn't the issue. Filling it is the issue. So until the Commonwealth issues the permits for 2 20,000-gallon tanks and 1 30,000-gallon tank, they can't be filled. So the project...
So they're at risk now.
Correct. Right. So if we could, let's loop back to the local level, because I believe that's why we're here tonight. One of the requirements of the state permitting process is that a local land use license be issued by, that is you gentlemen, the Board of Selectmen. In 1995, the Board of Selectmen for Acushnet then issued a land use license for the storage of combustible liquids, combustible and flammable liquids at PJ Keating. Wasn't PJ Keating then? We could have a game trying to remember what the name of the company was back then. I believe it was either Warren or Tilcon Capaldi, correct. So the land use license is in place, and that goes with the land. So it's not issued to a company, it's issued to that parcel of land. So when Capaldi left and Keating came in, there was no reason, no legal requirement to change the license because it sticks with the land. However, that was a snapshot in time. The Board of Selectmen in 1995 approved the land use license for the storage of combustible liquids at the location where the plant currently is, in the back, configured that way, with all the supporting structures around it. So in 1995, they came in, here's what we're doing, does the town of Acushnet give us permission? Board of Selectmen at the time said yes. What's changed now is the configuration and location of the asphalt plant. So that changes that initial vote, that initial approval of the license according to town council. So you, as the licensing authority, have the authority to call for a public hearing on the issuance or the revision of a land use license for the storage of flammable and combustible liquids at PJ Keating. Ms. Hebert has been in touch with town council, and they kind of laid out the legal authorization for that, as well as the structure on which that meeting would take place. While the marshal's office is looking for that, it's not time sensitive. They understand that we're meeting tonight, and that the decision will be made, hopefully tonight, whether or not to have this hearing, and then at the hearing, there'll be a decision whether or not to reissue the license. So I asked if we were gumming up the works for them by not having this in place now, and the answer was no. And I asked if they were gumming up the works for us, where the permit's not issued yet, but we're gonna go, we would have the hearing, and they said no. This can work in tandem. As long as we get to the place where, prior to their approval, the land use license is either issued or denied. So that's the procedural aspect of it. So there's kind of an anticipation that the relocation of the hot mix asphalt plant is going to be of concern to the neighbors in that area. And I think all of us would agree that that's a valid concern. I have been talking to folks the course of the last couple of years about this project, or at least for the last year. And the asphalt plant, as you know, it's been in operation for 50 years. So unless you moved into town or built a house 51 years ago, this is new to you. The new location is going to be an industrial activity in a new section of an industrial parcel of land. So for 50 years, they've been tucked out into the woods. Now they're moving it up closer, very close to South Main Street. And if you see the silos, on the opposite side of the silos is where the mixing will occur and the industrial activity will occur. So there are some very valid concerns that neighbors have expressed to you individually and at public hearings, to the soil board and other venues, that I think we need to be ready to be prepared as a town to handle those concerns. The big picture issues, the health concerns of blue smoke and emissions from the different burning aspects, those are under the purview of the Board of Health. And the plan that's been endorsed by both the Board of Health and the Soil Board for the hiring of a part-time health agent is truly key to the success of making sure that the new asphalt plant doesn't become a burden to this community. So Mr. Correa is in the process of developing a job description for a part-time health agent whose primary responsibilities would be the agent of the soil board. And this person would come in with a certain skill set and would be the town's boots on the ground to ensure compliance with a whole host of different regulations, federal, state, and the like. Joe, do you have that? Do you have that job description? Yeah, I need that also, please. Thank you. So the job description is very lengthy, and from what I understand, the funding is in place for the current fiscal year. The goal would be to have this person online prior to the spring startup. So as soon as this machine is turned on for the very first time, we have a Town of Acushnet employee on site, ready to make sure that all the requirements are being followed and that we're protecting our interests. So one of my recommendations, beyond having the hearing for the license, the public hearing, to give the townspeople and the neighbors a chance to address this, would also be to really advocate for this position and to keep the momentum going towards getting it filled so that by April 1st, we have that person trained and ready to engage in this activity. The second, though, is what do we do with those complaints that are not going to be health in nature? So the health agent will be there, but what happens when you get a phone call regarding noise? Or, Ms. Hebert comes in and her answer machine is lit up because of a smell from the asphalt plant. A few nights ago, the fire department chased down a strange odor that was called in on Roosevelt Street. Roosevelt Street's right over here. We determined that it was from the asphalt plant, and it was just atmospheric conditions kept the odor, and the wind kind of drew it this way. We're quite a distance now from the asphalt plant, yet folks on Roosevelt Street were picking up the odor. I don't think we're stretching the imagination that when we move that now closer to here, on that same night, if we're able to replicate that, you're going to have sections of town that have never smelled the asphalt plant before, picking up that odor. What do we do when we get those calls? Well, one of the things I think, we don't want to fail the residents by setting up a system where we simply have them call PJ Keating. That puts too much of the responsibility on Keating to kind of self-police. Not the big issues of health concerns and EPA standards and DEP standards and the like, but those, and I don't mean to demean those nuisance calls, the tailgates on the trucks that fall open and clang, or the light infiltration from new lights that will be on the tanks, coming into people's homes when in the past they never had that issue before. So in speaking with Mr. Correa and others, My final recommendation, our final recommendation, would be the creation of a nuisance abatement plan that the stakeholders, the Board of Selectmen, the Soil Board, Board of Health, and others, work with PJ Keating to develop a plan of receiving, managing, and reporting back to you on those nuisance calls that come in. Chief Richmond today was saying that, over the course of his career, he's received, as working the desks at the police department, numerous 911 calls off hours from people complaining about odor and noise or issues over at the asphalt plants. Well, our 911 system shouldn't be the point of intake for these. So I think we need to step back, take a look at putting together some kind of internal infrastructure so that when these concerns come to us, and they will, they're gonna come to us. This is a noisy operation, it's a late night operation, it's an early morning operation. This is going to be, I was explaining it to someone the other day, when you have a Maytag refrigerator that's been in your house for the last 20 years, you don't even hear it running anymore. But then when you go buy a new one and put it in a different corner of the kitchen, now it keeps you up at night because you're not used to that white noise, and there's going to be a lot of white noise from this project. So I think we'd serve the
White's
people
not
well.
the color I'd pick, but
We'd serve the people well by spending some time between now and the spring to really look at some sort of nuisance abatement plan so that we can hold people accountable, the residents know how to file a complaint, and they have confidence in that complaint is going to be followed up by local officials. So, there's a hook back now to the land license, land use license. According to town council, the local licensing authority can put any condition whatsoever they want on the land use license. I would argue that the requirements, the restriction of following the nuisance abatement plan be codified inside the license, so it gives it juice. If you violate, or if you don't pay attention to that plan, you're in violation of the license. Depending on what town council says about that, we may want to put it in the soil removal permit that's issued by the soil board as a condition for PJ Keating operating. Not just the asphalt plant, but the entire quarry. They are given a permit by you, signed by the Board of Selectmen, comes from the Soil Advisory Board, but it's issued by the Board of Selectmen, and we can put a condition in there that the nuisance abatement plan needs to be followed as well. So you have some teeth in making sure that what we all expect to happen, which is, again, it's bound to happen. This isn't a silent operation. We're moving it from a sparsely populated area of town to a heavily populated area of town. So we have to expect there's going to be some concerns. So those are the recommendations that I come before you tonight. The public hearing on the license, your support and direction to put together a nuisance abatement plan, and a very strong endorsement of keeping the momentum going for the assistant health agent.
yeah, go upstairs.
On the 3 pages you've given us, Chief, the second page in, it says 100-yard setback location of utilities, and it's got a green circle drawn.
Yep.
But it's pretty much starting from the edge of the circle from the road. And then the third page says a 500-yard setback, and that one's coming from basically the river.
Right.
Can you explain those 2 circles?
Yeah, this is a request of the permit application to the state. They want to see a 100-yard setback, 300 feet, so that they can see where the utilities are. And if you look within that green circle, there is stormwater discharge route, electrical, the key, the legend is up there in the corner. So this identifies for the fire protection engineers within 100 yards where the public utilities are rolling in. And then for the 500 yard, the requirement is to see the closest body of water. is there a body of water within 500 yards? And the answer is yes. There's not only the retention ponds on PJ Keating's within their property, but it also just nicks the New Bedford Harbor. So this is all to meet the requirements of the state application.
So they moved the tanks, right, or put new tanks?
Those are new silos.
Okay, so shouldn't have we done this before they put the tanks in?
Well, as Mr. Cabral said, you know, they're assuming a modicum of risk that the overall project would fail approval, either at the state level or through the land license issued by you gentlemen. The building permit for that was pulled and was compliant and has been inspected. So they requested permission from the town to erect those on foundations and the other equipment, and it was all found to be in satisfactory condition, so that proceeded. But again, the operation of it doesn't occur, that those tanks don't get filled, which stops this whole process unless the state gives the final okay from their perspective, and included in that final okay is documentation that there's a valid land use license issued by you gentlemen.
So that's my next question. What happens if we don't approve the license, the land use license for this whole thing to be moved up front? It kind of just seems like
assuming
carts before the horse.
Right.
Right?
I would assume
Am I
we end up-
imagining this, or am I saying it right?
Well, again, part of the state's permitting is they have to review on paper and then go and inspect in reality the tanks. So they were gonna have to build it anyway. We knew it was gonna be built before the final approval came in. So the question is, for the state, did they build it technically the way that they were supposed to?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Can I, second, I jump in?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, this is something I latched onto early on in my term as a selectman, and attended some public hearings, and I'm a member of the soil board, and learned a lot through that process. And I think if there's one thing I've communicated very clearly to PJ Keating, number one, that they've not been a good neighbor over the last bunch of years. I think they're trying to become a better neighbor, but they've not been a very good neighbor in the town of Acushnet. Number one. Number two, I think it's a real mistake for them to move that asphalt plant from the back of their property to the front of their property, and really try to encourage them to find a spot in the back of the property that would make more sense. Your plant is located on some land that they'd like to make a hole. Yeah, they'd like to see the land become a hole, and the asphalt plant's on it. So I encourage them to find a spot to move it back, and they tried to explain why moving it to the street made sense. And my conclusion is it makes sense because it's profits over people, and it's more financially viable for them to have it on the street. And we're going to try harder to be a good neighbor, but I don't think they can guarantee that. And to date, what I've been told is, well, given the zoning of the site, there's nothing I can do about it as a selectman. The site complies, it's industrially zoned. There's nothing we can do about it. So I'm hoping there's something we can do about this, because I really object to that asphalt plant at the front of the property. As a member of the soil board, Mr. Correa has been working hard on the environmental issues and on putting details in their license to try to make them less of a public nuisance, to make them a better neighbor. But moving that plant to the street is a mistake on their part, in my opinion. And
I think,
and I've got to vote in favor of this somehow after having, so now you're giving me the opportunity to vote on what they've gone ahead and done, and
So I think
I'm going to be
what-
hard pressed to give them the vote they're looking for.
I think what's necessary is to get you three gentlemen to a position of comfort, along with the residents in that area, and that might be a hard sell.
Impossible is
But-
the word that comes to
Well,
mind.
what I would ask, just kind of thinking outside the box, is if legal counsel opined to Ms. Hebert that you have the authority as a licensing board to set conditions, including the term of the license. So if you included in the license a requirement that a nuisance abatement plan be followed, and you set the license for a year, or 6 months or a year, and then we came back and did this all over again. We have a plan that you all agreed to. You were going to be responsive to Mrs. Smith, who now has an LED light blazing into her bedroom that never existed in the last 49 years. What did you do about it? And if we come back and report to the board that there's great compliance with these nuisances when they rise up, okay.
Well,
But if there's not, then you have the ability at the end of that license term to say, you're not
The one
listening
that
to the
comes, the one
request
that
of
comes
people.
to mind, Chief, honestly, is they operate all night long, and they run heavy equipment up and down South Main Street all night long. Not just South Main Street,
All day long.
they come up
All day
Main
long.
Street all day long, all night
day, all
long.
night.
So that's happening, that's the complaint I get about the noise coming out of the facility, and now you're gonna
Dust and
move
dirt.
the asphalt plant from the back of the property, you're gonna move noise from the back of the property to the front of the property, and
Smell and odor.
smell and odor and sound, and light, and I don't know how that's a good idea, and so if we're licensed, it's the ability to restrict nighttime operations. And,
That's within the purview.
and I think we've already got that in our soil permit, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's in our bylaw. We could do that if we wanted to already. We've chosen not to for, I'm not sure I've got a good explanation for it.
But I'm
We've
sure
chosen not
that,
to, but-
I'm sure you're paying the lawyers a lot of money, and they would be able to come back with a definitive response that the land use license can have a limited span of time.
The number of trucks that can come in and out of the facility.
Sounds to me, the way you
overnight.
just described it is we can basically do whatever we want, control it however we want.
Again, I'm not a lawyer. My mother wanted me to be, but
She's still proud of you, Chief. She's still proud of you.
But my read of what came down from town council is that licensing authority can put restrictions in the license, including the term of the license. So if you were to grant it for 6 months to see how receptive they are to the nuisance complaints or the big health issues that we may find when the agent hits the bricks over there, and then come back and, have some accountability.
The problem is during the day, they're paying an outside source to street sweep, right? And it's a freaking mess down Main Street. It's dusty and dirty, and if I lived across the street with all those people, I seen one woman washing her car, I'm like, what are you doing that for? Tomorrow it's gonna be covered in dirt again. I don't even understand why somebody would hand wash their car, but she chose to do it. And it's a disgrace. You go by and look at the windows on their house, I mean, it's pathetic. And they ain't doing anything about it. And that's like, I agree with Mr. Cabral. Look, I was against the original article to change them to industrial and give them that right. I was against that, and I was the only one against it for some reason. And, here we are today, and I commend Mr. Cabral for his efforts in the past since he's been on the board, really going after this issue, because, I was just aggravated that it passed and nobody else was against it, and now we find out, oh, look at all the problems we're gonna face, and here we go. So, again,
And if we could
thank
just
you.
clarify for the folks here and who are listening at home, when that occurred, when that zoning change occurred, we gave up our right of site review and approval.
We had faith in people.
So now,
I didn't.
any time before that, they move any of the chess pieces, they had to get town approval. And now that they're industrial, they can move the chess pieces around any way they want,
Well,
within their property lines. And
I
within
spoke with a
code
resident 2 months ago, you spoke with him as well, he called me, I referred him to you, and lived on South Main Street for perhaps 6 years, and he said, I've been here for 6 years, I know what I was buying when I bought it. He said, you can't appreciate the increase in truck volume that's coming out of that facility overnight. I've lived here for 6 years, I've got an expectation as to what's going on in that facility. He said that the volume of trucks that is coming up and down South Main Street all night long now has increased exponentially, and that's the kind of thing that I think we're unaware of, that there's no limit on what can happen. It's just, okay, you're gonna operate all night, that's one thing. How many trucks can come in and out of there all night?
Right.
And we've never tried to restrict that in any way, and I think that's a conversation we need to have, because
Absolutely.
I think our residents have suffered for years having that facility in this town, and I think they're trying to be better neighbors. I really get that, but there's been a change in personnel, the general manager's not there anymore. I think he was trying, the gentleman on site that's responsible for quarry operations, I believe is trying, but there's only so much you can do with what that is. And I think, I hope we step up and we try to put some more control. We'll work cooperatively with them, but we need to put some more control over them, because I'm not sure they can control themselves adequately.
And to their credit, until a few weeks ago, there was a point of contact that we had at the quarry who was amazingly receptive. And, Joe or Jim or I would give him a call and say, we got a complaint, and he would drive to that residence and knock on the door and listen to the resident and try to fix it if he could. He's not there any longer.
Yeah.
And I think what that illustrates is the relationships that we develop that might be able to get that kind of fast response is dependent on their personnel. But if we codify this, if we come up with a plan that we're committed to, that's a standard, they have to.
It's
Versus-
Jeff is the quarry
Jeff-
guy.
Jeff is no longer
Jeff's-
there, yeah.
Jeff's no longer there?
He goes, you good guy.
So, and again, there are good people there, as you mentioned, the leadership team in there, and they've expressed an interest in working through these issues, and they have on a couple that we've brought to their attention. We just know there's gonna be a boatload more. And now's the time to build that system so that none of those complaints fall by the wayside.
Can we, Ms. Hebert, can we try to schedule that public hearing first of the year? Sounds,
That's depending on your schedule. I don't
sometime
think
in
that,
January
Not the
is...
exact first though, right?
Yeah, not the exact first, no. Not the exact first.
Somewhere in the first
Something,
meeting, whatever we can do.
first 2 weeks of January,
Sure.
maybe?
And have you communicated with town council and have any of the legal aspects of his opinion letter on it, on things we can and can't, do? I'd like to have that early.
Absolutely, and the publication for that hearing would only be 7 days, so it's actually not as bad as...
It's only a 7-day public notice?
Yeah.
Are we gonna mail that to residents, or how's that? work?
Yeah, and that would be on the cost of PJ Keating, so they'd have to let all the
How big a survey
abutters
would we
know. All owners of real estate abutting on said land or directly opposite said land on any public or private street as they appear on the most recent local
I
tax
think we
list.
need to draw a bigger circle than that.
Yep.
You know,
I think there are a lot of residents that are impacted.
Even Pembroke over here that abuts it on this side.
Well, Roosevelt
the other
Street
side.
apparently.
so while I'm here on this issue, if I could just kind of close the loop on this concern too that was raised. Blasting is something that's on my desk. We permit the blasting to occur, we investigate complaints. It is frustrating to have to tell a resident that, yes, it feels like, the sky was falling, but based on the seismic reports that are required by code, they were below the threshold. However, residents have raised concerns over the years of blasting and any possible damage that may have occurred to the natural gas infrastructure around the plant. So to their credit, Eversource Gas, twice now at our request, has gone out and surveyed all the streets around the quarry, who would be most impacted if there was damage occurring, because the blast energy works its way outward. And both times they came back with positive results. There was no leaks in the road.
Eversource accepts a standard of leaks that's, well, zero is not what they found. They found an acceptable level.
So
of
within their
leaks is what
standard,
they found.
their report back to us.
It's
is
not,
that
it's
they're-
not any more leaky than becomes a problem for us. It's
But
our standard.
the effort was made to go to those local streets at our request by the public utility to inspect for leaks, and they reported back that none were found. So we're on top of that, trying to do it twice a year, just to kind of give the residents some assurance that, yes, it seems like your house is shaking, but a lot of that is air concussion, and we're staying on top of what's below the ground.
I think.
Okay?
Chief, thank you. All right, so we're going to schedule a public hearing.
Public
Mr.
hearing.
Gasser? Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I think you hit it spot on, is we need to do the public outreach a little bit further out.
Yeah, we need a bigger circle, we need a bigger circle.
You gotta go on all sides and make sure it's right.
Half a mile anyway.
I'd rather have 100 extra people than not anyone show up and they say, well, you didn't notify us.
Yep.
Half a mile anyway.
We got that.
You got that? Yeah, we've done it before. We got it Roosevelt's, how far is Roosevelt from?
Pretty far.
A mile?
4 or 5
We
streets.
might not have that. We'll mark on it for sure, yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Chief.
Thank you.
All right, next, under old business, I'm looking for our police chief. I'm not seeing him.
He's
Oh,
upstairs.
okay.
He's in the bird's house up there hanging out.
Good evening.
Welcome, Chief. Start with part-time police officer list. We got some new faces here. Some of them I know.
Yes, back on October 29th, Chief Alves, as one of his last official duties, requested a list, civil service list for permanent intermittent police officers. permanent intermittent police officers are from where we draw our full-time officers. So it's very important that we refresh that list and keep an ample stable of candidates working within the department. They'll work part-time, they'll work the desk. The way it works is, or the way it's worked in the past is, you call for the list. We requested five slots. We only got, we have 5 applications back. One of them was incomplete, so we only ended up with 4 applicants. Luckily, the 4 applicants we got represent professionally and personally probably amongst the best crop that I've seen in my 25 years with the department. And I can give you a brief rundown of each of their qualifications.
Yeah,
if
could
you
you
want.
introduce them?
Yeah, sure. Dominic, if you want to stand up and come up forward. This is Dominic Sullivan Souza. He's an Acushnet resident. He's currently employed with South Coast Hospitals Group as a security guard there. As part of his job there, he's been sworn in as a Special New Bedford police officer. He has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Franklin Pierce University, excuse me. What's also nice is Dominic is a graduate of the part-time academy that we host at our station this past spring. So he would be able to start sooner than later. The academy is about 5 months long, the part-time academy, 3 nights a week and Saturdays. Mr. Sullivan Souza already has that under his belt. My detectives did the background investigation, spoke to neighbors, spoke to employers, spoke to references. Then we had them in on Sunday morning. Detective Sergeant Ashley, Sergeant Crew, and I did a panel interview of all the candidates. They all performed well. Found no issues whatsoever, and I think Mr. Sullivan Souza would be a great addition to the department.
Great.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up would be Nathaniel Turgeon. Nate, you want to come on up? He is also an Acushnet resident. He graduated from Fairhaven High School. He's currently enlisted in the National Guard, member of the military police unit based out of Taunton. Mr. Turgeon's case is a real asset to our department. He is actually enrolled in a full-time police academy now that's run out of Worcester. He is due to graduate in January, very early January of 2020. So he is another candidate that will be able to start sooner than later. The advantage of Mr. Turgeon is he is going to have the full-time academy. So if at some point in the future we need to add personnel, we don't have to go through we'll have to go through our list, our civil service list, but he already has that full-time academy. Should we get to him, we'd be able to just flick the switch on him and he would be able to start relatively soon as a full-time officer as well.
Great. Welcome. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Next up, we have Travis Ferreira.
Travis I've known since he was 5.
Perfect, then you know his story.
I know Travis.
Travis, again, a Acushnet resident. If you notice the trend here, and it's going to continue with the last candidate, he has an associate's degree in criminal justice from Bristol Community College. He's had the same job for better than 5 years out of Fall River. Very highly regarded, flexible, will do anything that's asked of him at his job, staying late, coming in early, doing jobs that he's normally not expected to do. He too, like the other candidates, passed the rigors of our background check with flying colors, as well as the panel interview we did on Sunday morning. So again, he'd be another candidate, and we made sure he shaved before he came in here, because I almost didn't recognize him on the parking lot. But in all seriousness, he's another great young candidate we have.
Great, Travis.
Next up, we have Jacob Vanderbacoa. Did I pronounce that right? Vanderbacoa, I'm sorry.
I know Jacob as well. Welcome, Jacob.
Jacob, another Acushnet resident as well. He graduated in June of 2019 from Mass Maritime Academy with a bachelor's degree in emergency management. He's had a couple of internships related to his schooling, one with the UMass Dartmouth Police Chief, another one with the State Lottery. Both contact people there spoke very, very highly of him, as did all the references. Neighbors spoke highly of him, and it gets disappointing having done background checks for a lot of the people that are currently on the department. You get a little excited when you find something. And I questioned the gentleman, the officers that did it for us. I'm like, because you never found anything on any of these guys. And I think it's because there's really nothing to be found, to be honest with you. They looked at all social media accounts and things of that nature. Again, I can't say enough about all 4 as a group. These collectively are what we want to see in police officers in our department going forward.
And we want to hire them and we want to keep them, right? That's
Absolutely,
the
we want to
goal
keep
is
them.
they remain Acushnet police officers.
Correct. And the offer of employment obviously will be contingent for two of the four, Mr. Vadaboncourt and Mr. Ferrera would have to attend the part-time academy, which the orientation is actually tomorrow, and the academy starts after the first of the year. But the contingent offer of employment is also contingent on them passing a medical and a drug screening, passing the state physical abilities test and psychological evaluation. So it's contingent on them, passing all those standards.
All four of them?
All four will have to do all of those things, yes. The only exception would be the completion of the academy, which Mr. Turgeon will have in January and Mr. Sullivan Souza has currently.
Great, welcome, Jacob.
Welcome.
So, you said contingent upon all of that stuff, so how would you like the motion?
I would entertain or ask that all four be appointed.
Permanent, intermittent police officers like
Permanent
we've done in the
intermittent police
past?
officers,
No
yes.
contingencies, or
we'll
obviously it's understood that with these contingencies?
Yes, and whether it be tonight or tomorrow, I'll have them sign off on the contingent offer of employment that we traditionally use.
These are requirements of the job, these are the things you have to accomplish.
Correct.
I make a motion to appoint all four members, Chief Richmond just introduced, as permanent intermittent police officers.
And I'll second that motion.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay?
Aye. Congratulations.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Work hard.
Yes, sir.
Don't go anywhere.
No, I'm not.
All right.
If you don't mind, I'm going to release them.
Sure.
Gentlemen, you're welcome to stay, but if you want to head out, I'll be in contact
Let
with you
them know
tomorrow.
it's okay to smile now, okay? So apparently they were instructed not to smile, so it's okay to
You got the
smile.
serious face on
You
today.
can smile again.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome to stay. We're going to talk about some other issues within the department, but I'll contact you within the next day or so to sign up on the paperwork. Travis and Jacob, you want to make sure you're at the department well prior to 6:30 tomorrow for that orientation. Sound good? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so also, so we requested the sergeant list.
Yes.
And we've got 3 sergeants that have taken the civil service examination.
3 patrolmen that have taken the sergeant's.
I'm sorry, 3 patrolmen that have taken with various scores. We've been provided with resumes. I think the first step in this process is we wanted to bring you in to talk about the structure of management within the department.
Yes.
You're the new chief. We've traditionally had 5 sergeants in the department. Traditionally, being recent history, had 5 sergeants in the department. Just talk a little bit about why that structure makes sense for
Sure.
the immediate future. Is, it's just sort of saying, okay, we're down to 4, maybe we should have 4, and help me understand why we need 5, and we should take the next step of appointing one of the 3 that's taken the civil service exam, and I want to talk about what that process is going to look like as
Okay.
well. But first step is let's talk about why we need 5 sergeants and why that's important in Acushnet.
Sure. About 15 years ago, we went to the 5 sergeant structure. That puts 1 sergeant in detectives, working with a detective, and 4 sergeants on patrol. With the 4 patrol sergeants working the 4 and 2 schedule we work, that puts a sergeant on all but 2 scheduled for all but 2 shifts on a weekly basis. I think it's very important based on the nature of the job and especially the composure of the department currently. Twofold. One, it's a relatively young department, about to get significantly younger. And the other reason is that we need to provide some of those avenues for advancement. Granted, promotion to sergeant and promotion to chief, those don't come up very often. But I need, as the chief of police, I need to be able to rely on those professionally trained supervisors that are there to make sure the officers are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Not that there's a rampant issue, but the sergeants are they're the mentors. They're the people that shape the younger officers. And I think by not promoting a sergeant to replace the vacancy that was created when I was promoted would be somewhat detrimental, because in the absence of the sergeant, the senior officer in charge of a shift is designated as the OIC, officer in charge, which is not a bad thing. We have a tremendous amount of good officers there, but what happens is you don't get consistency there because the OIC is going to kind of depend on who's working that particular shift based on seniority. So it may be Officer A on Monday, maybe Officer C on Tuesday, next Wednesday it might be Officer D. And I think what happens is you don't get that consistency where officers that are working come to expect certain things from certain sergeants. They know that this sergeant needs to have this done, that done, this done. And I think you get more of a commitment as a supervisor from somebody that's formally designated a sergeant and gone through some additional training.
So one sergeant's permanently assigned to detectives,
Correct, yes.
and the other, so you get 7 times 3, 21 shifts during the course of the week, and the 4 other sergeants cover those shifts?
Yes, there's basically with the 4 and 2 with the rotating schedule, with those 4 uniformed sergeants, all but 2 of those shifts during that period of time are covered by a sergeant.
So it takes 4 sergeants to do that?
It actually takes 4.5.
More than 4?
Yeah.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
go.
Yes.
I was getting confused on the numbers because I thought there's 5 sergeants.
Currently,
Yeah, 5 sergeants.
currently there are 4 sergeants and there's 1
Currently
vacancy.
4, right, because
Okay.
the opposition's gone out.
Yes.
Okay. We're talking 4, and I'm thinking something different, so,
The 4 would be just patrol.
because one's in the detectives,
Correct.
right, all the time.
Yes.
Okay. And that was you before, according to your email.
Yes, that would.
I know you guys kind of shift, sometimes the chief has that flexibility.
Yes, he does. It's the
And
chief's
do different
designation.
appointments, maybe somebody does it for 2 years, and you take him out, put him over there, and put that other, appoint the other guy, or maybe you stay there for longer term, but I'm sorry, that's all I want, just
Okay.
make sure we are talking apples on apples.
Questions about the need, other questions about the need for a 5th sergeant?
No.
No, but I have more questions about more sergeants, because his email alludes to that.
Yeah, are you, all right, yeah, are you suggesting?
I am, as part of a larger plan. We had talked about it, back when we interviewed for the chief's job, and I think it was consistent across the 3 candidates that interviewed, the need to add some additional rank. Adding an additional sergeant, in addition to making a 6th sergeant, would allow us to cover those 2 shifts per week that are currently covered by an OIC. Those 2 days, it wouldn't be a significant cost increase, because currently the officer in charge of a shift is given 10% above top step patrolman, and a sergeant's pay is 15%. So you're only looking at an additional 5% on those 2 days. And the trade-off for that 5% is you're getting a committed, professional supervisor that has, that answers to me on a regular basis as a supervisor.
Now, haven't we, I think, so the 6th, we talked about changing the leadership structure in the department.
Yes.
The conversation, I think, in the past had been more around a deputy chief position or a lieutenant
Executive
position.
yes.
Or something like that, rather than 6 sergeants.
This would be a step in that direction. I think what would happen, my idea is that you would increase the pool of candidates for that position, and actually would prepare you for that position depending on when that came to fruition. In other words, you would have experienced sergeants, and you might retract a sergeant, should you make a promotion to an executive officer, we'll call it, just for the sake of argument, we'll call it a deputy chief, just to be clear. Would also allow us to get ahead of the curve. There's at least 1 sergeant that's, nearing the end of his career, makes no secret about it. I mean, it's not going to be tomorrow or next week or next month. But to get the sergeants online, it takes a little bit of time with the civil service exam and getting them properly trained. So I don't think the money would not be ill spent on promoting the 6th sergeant, because again, 2 of the days, half of the shifts would be an improvement, or would be replacing, I should say, the OIC, the officer in charge, on those 2 shifts. The other 2 days would allow me some flexibility to do a couple of different things. One, we are taking steps toward the ultimate plan to add an officer to each shift and not replace the first officer out in order to reduce on overtime. That would put us a step in that direction. It would also give us the opportunity to perhaps free somebody up to assist in the detective division. As it is, we have a detective sergeant and a detective, but that detective pulls double duty. A position that we had, that we lost in 2008 due to attrition and budget cuts, the economy and whatnot, we actually had a full-time officer working in detectives that did firearms licensing and would help out with detectives when the licensing responsibilities were done for the week. Since that, in the last 10 or 11 years, the licensing responsibilities, what's required for the police department to process a gun license has increased significantly. And there's obviously a very large responsibility with that. And, I think the person that's currently in that position now, the town has been served very well by him serving that double duty, but it's at some point, there's a breaking point. We need to, he's more valuable to me he's more valuable to me as a detective, as an investigator, with the amount of training that we've invested in him over the years in regards to technology-related crimes and sexual assaults. Those are the type of things you can't go to a 24-hour class and, you're all set. It's things that come with time, comes with experience, and I would like to try to free up that officer to be able to do more in-depth investigations of that nature.
Mr. Gasper?
So, Chief, when I read the last paragraph in that, it was something that I have been talking to some of the police officers, God knows, a year, 2 years, whatever, for the open shift at OIC, right? I was unaware that those 2 shifts had been open all that time. Like,
Okay.
the officer in charge.
Yes.
And it is only a 5% difference, no matter how you cut it in slices. And I'm pretty sure, based on the contract, is if it was being filled with somebody lower ranking in the step schedule, according to the pay salary step schedule, they actually bump, so that person's, let's just pretend bottom is 20 and top is 30, right? Let's pretend he's in the middle at 25. They actually jump to the top of the scale because it's 10% above top step patrolman. So that increase for that officer actually expands dramatically, doesn't it?
Correct. It jumps from, it's based, the officer in charge pay is 10% based on the top step patrolman. Top step now, and I'm remiss because I haven't made top step a long time ago, is either 10 or 12 years right now. So you have, in some cases, you have officers, good officers, and I'm not belittling any of the officers and whatnot, but in some cases, you have officers, jumping up significantly that may have been on 2 or 3 years that are jumping to that top step, plus getting the 10% on top.
So I've done quite a little financial analysis on people in OICs and sergeants, and based on Quinn and everything else, and I've run a couple of different scenarios in it. I'm interested to sit down with you and maybe Ms. Hebert, so we can make sure that we plug. I mean, I did some numbers, and I'm pretty accurate with my numbers, but I'd like to sit down with Ms. Hebert and yourself and do some calculations on those 2 shifts versus for that 6th sergeant.
Okay.
And do some calculations to see how it's going to come out, because when I do the math, it almost seems like it would behoove us not to do it, because it seems like we could actually save money, as strange as that sounds. When I say that, it's backfilling people. So we talked about the 4 on and not filling the first one out. This person, that shift may become, we might be able to do something with it where that takes control of that for 1 shift, right? So the 2 shifts we're talking about is day shifts. And I know the way you guys bid schedules, this is why I need Mr. Richmond's expertise, but I did a basic 40-hour work week, but the way they bid shifts, it's a little convoluted, and it's 2 on day shift now, and it might change the shift, the 2nd and 3rd shift, the way the contract's written, the way these guys bid shifts, and correct me whenever I make a mistake, Chief, but it almost seems, when I did my financial breakdown, it almost seems like we're either gonna be, it'll be a wash, or we'll actually save money, depending on how the board would work with the new chief to structure how somebody gets banged out and you don't fill it, this is what's gonna happen, and there's that mutual understanding of how we do the schedule, in other words. So I think it's worth taking a little bit of time before we make any promotional things, and I hate to do it with only a few weeks left in the first 6 months of the year, and maybe do that in the new year as well. But I think that it would behoove us not to sit down and really do some calculations on how this could work, if it could work.
Are we fine with the 5th, filling the 5th sergeant position? You're talking about the 6th, are we fine with the 5th sergeant position?
If that's what the chief wants.
The 5th is, we're paying somebody OIC pay on that as well right now.
Yep.
So,
If you want to advance one.
I'd like to advance the 5th, and then I'm more than happy to sit down.
And that would be Michael Madden, right? First on the.
That's the on the civil service list, but
conversation we
yeah.
need to have.
Right.
The, agree with the concept of slowing down on the 6th sergeant
Okay.
and understanding that a little bit better.
I'm more than happy to sit down with.
Yeah, I think,
anyone.
I like this suggestion, and I think the 5th sergeant, I think the 6th sergeant's a change from what we've done traditionally, and I can be convinced to do that, but,
Let's look at it close.
yeah, I'd like to understand it better.
Discussion.
And so let's spend some more time studying that, and so on the 5th sergeant position, and I know from you yesterday, the conversation I had with Ms. Hebert earlier was, we just hired police chief, and we had a process for that. I wanted to talk with the gentleman here today about what the process for filling the sergeant position would look like. My perspective is I would defer the authority to you, that it's, you know the three sergeants that I don't, that, I would defer to your judgment as to who would be
In
the
a
best
perfect world,
candidate.
Mr. Cabral, I would gladly take all three of them.
Yeah,
mean,
I know,
to
I
be
know.
hon- To be honest with you.
I know.
No, and that's,
You've heard this before.
no, and, listen, I'm not gonna, I'm relatively new before the board here, but I'd have no issue. I've worked with all three, as a sergeant, and they worked as patrolmen under me for extended period of times. Went on some pretty, we've handled a lot of calls together, over the years, and all three of them, and to a T, if it was a tie, if it was a three-way tie, I don't know how I would have made that decision. to
Yeah,
be
my
honest with you.
only hesitation would be if you took number 3 off the list, I might still support that, but
We'd have some different, I think.
I'd want to have more discussion
Yes.
about that, because
Yeah.
that could create problems for us.
Mr.
But my
Chairman,
perspective would be to defer to you, but
it's pretty cut and dry here from Susan Towson, from Miss Leonard sent this lady over to HRD. It specifically says you can go with the first candidate on the list. If you bypass anyone, you need to formally bypass them by providing them notice of why you selected someone lower on the list, plus include their appeal rights language. So it's almost similar to what we did for the chief.
Right.
Am I correct by stating that?
Yes,
Yeah.
very similar.
we could go to 2, we could go to 3, but I'm
I just want to prepare the board.
saying if we're doing something other than 1, we want to understand why.
My understanding,
That's not a sufficient reason for
Yes.
bypassing.
Yes.
That's all, I just want to bring that to the board's attention before we start throwing names. I
Yep.
want to make sure we're orderly here.
Do you,
You already threw a name.
No, I didn't. Well, he's first on the
Yeah, I
list.
know.
my understanding,
Like I did?
if I may, my understanding of civil service and bypasses is the lower the rank, the more difficult it is to do the bypass. In other words, the higher the rank, the more latitude the appointing authority has for obvious reasons. But the lower the rank, it's
Go
difficult.
by the list.
It's difficult, yes.
So before we go back to you,
With the rank, is that means the rank meaning what?
No, meaning
the assessment center? with
No, the number,
scores?
no, I mean the number on the list, the way they appear on the list.
Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't even question it. I mean, we just went through the process, and when I read that paragraph from the lady from HRD, I was like, okay, so it stands the same as pretty much what the board did for the chief, so.
what do you feel the process should be? I mean, as I said, I'm comfortable deferring to the chief to pick the sergeant. He feels do you feel we should interview the candidates? What do you want to do? What do you want this to look like?
I agree with you, Mr. Cabral. I'm comfortable with with the chief picking.
Yeah.
You know.
Mr. Gasper?
I'm good. Whatever the chief feel is best, and I think that we'll talk about the next one in line. I really, we gotta do some discovery on that and see where we're gonna end up and see what the true costs are, but damn, I did it today and it's, oof.
Do we want to do this tonight, or do we want to hold it?
I don't think there's anything to dispute, really. I mean, you're gonna try to find a fault with the number one candidate and have to do the loop. And I know Mr. Matten for a while, and, he is,
Just thinking out loud.
he is,
I'm-
yeah, I
as
mean,
said-
you know what? He's been on the force, how long has he been there, 20?
Just about 20 years.
So that is your recommendations to appoint Mr. Matten as
Yes, yes it is.
Okay.
I'd make that motion to appoint Michael Matten as a sergeant in Acushnet PD.
And I'll second that motion.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations to Sergeant Matten.
Thank you. I'll call him.
Congratulations.
Can I just, one other word in regards to the possible additional sergeant, is we normally bid our shifts out in March for the upcoming fiscal year. So I would ask if we're gonna have that discussion, yay or nay, to try to maybe do it come to some sort of a decision prior to March, because it would make it much easier when I put together a bid schedule. Because as a chief, I have the ability to adjust the current bid schedule that we have. And I'd like to do that prior to March 1st when I post the bids. That's the
I
only thing.
think that's good dialogue to have when we sit as a group.
Okay.
We'll sit as a group, yourself, myself, and Ms. Hebert, and we'll put it all together, and we'll use worst-case scenario of where people are at, and based on the list, and we'll work off that, right? And we'll know what it is and what it isn't. I've already done a couple of different analogies. I just want to make sure that my information is correct before I pass that on to the board.
Okay.
Oh, we got one more item that relates to you. We got the appointment of a special police officer, a young man named Michael Alves.
Great guy.
You know that name? All right.
Michael.
So it's moving from chief, I guess we need to make an appointment of him as a as a special police officer to do traffic details, things
Yes.
like that, so I need a motion from the board to do that, please.
Make a motion to approve Michael Alves as special police officer as presented.
Is there a second? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All right.
You can let that detail officer know, you can start doing details, okay?
I absolutely will.
And congratulate the young man for us.
I will.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Have a nice
Chief.
All right, new business, annual license renewals, see attached list. I gotta find that attached list, that's gonna be fun. Yeah, there's a couple,
No, there isn't.
I got it. License renewals, thanks. So, do we read
The
these?
name, what did we do last time? Did we read the name of the restaurant and the address, or do we have to read the person's name?
I think we read the business and the
Address?
business and the business and the address.
I know you can each one line by line.
Yeah, we do them one at a time. I think the business and the, let's take turns. Why don't, Mr. DeRoche, why don't you take
I'll take the
common,
right off the top here.
Common Vic. Yep.
Licenses. 2020 license renewals, Country Whip, 1173 Main Street, Seafood Hut, 2 South Main Street, Rochelle's, 590 to 594 Main Street, Pop Casey's, 141 South Main Street, TC Donuts, also known as Dunkin' Donuts, 150 South Main Street, Jeffrey's Pizza, 161 South Main Street, The Mill, 156 South Main Street, Captain's Place, 162 South Main Street, Silverbrook Farms, 934 Main Street, the American Legion, 71 Hope Street, Cam's Cuisine, 132 Main Street, Century House, 107 South Main Street, Blue Point Restaurant, 6 Dayton Street, Blue Lantern Cafe, 605 Main Street, BFW, Post 7239, 28 Roosevelt Street, La Ponderosa, 242 Robinson Road, Rivers End Cafe, 7.5 Tarkland Hill Road, JTS, 77 Slocum Street, Keith's Orchard, 1149 Main Street, and the Acushnet Creamery, 264 Main Street.
Mr. Gasper, you want the next two?
I'll just bang them out, yeah. All Alcoholic Club, American Legion, number 265, 71 Hope Street, VFW, number 7239, 28 Roosevelt Street. All alcoholic license, Cam's Cuisine, Captain's Place, 162 South Main Street, Century House, 107 South Main Street, Blue Point Restaurant, 6 Dayton Street, Blue Lantern Cafe, 605 Main Street, Rivers End Cafe, 7.5 Tarkland Hill Road, Ponderosa, 242 Robinson Road, JT, 77 Slocum Street, Kushner River Valley, 685 Main Street, all alcoholic package store, Scuttlebutts, 590 South Main Street, Chuck's Liquors 2, 172 South Main Street, Bonneville's Market, 142 South Main Street, Town Wines, 1 Middle Road, Jason's Variety, 270 Main Street, Restricted Music, American Legion, 71 Hope Street, VFW, 28 Roosevelt Street, Cam's Cuisine, 132 Main Street, Captain's Place, 162 South Main Street, Century House, 107 South Main Street, Blue Land Cafe, 605 Main Street, Rivers End Cafe, 7.5 Tarkland Hill Road, Ponderosa, 242 Robinson Road, JT, 77 Slocum Street. You want me to keep going, or you want to?
I'll take the next one. Automatic Amusements, American Legion, number 265, 71 Hope Street, VFW, number 7239, 28 Roosevelt Street, Blue Lantern Cafe, 605 Main Street, Rivers End Cafe, 7.5 Tarkland Hill Road, Ponderosa, 242 Robinson Road, JT, 77 Slocum Street, Class 2 Licensed Used Car, Repweld Corp., 734 Main Street, White's Auto, 211 Middle Road, Hayes Street Realty, 3 Hayes Street, Ted's, 308 Middle Road, South Coast Premium, 127 South Main Street, Shawmut Auto, 118 South Main Street, Murray's Auto Sales, 75 Lambert Street. The next two are hold. I don't know if do I mention the names?
Yeah, then we'll put them on hold.
They're on hold. Tony's Service Station, 158 Main Street, and South Main Street Enterprises, 16 South Main Street, also hold. I do want to talk about Tony's Service Station before we renew their license under, I want to talk about that. Class 3 Junk, Rep Weld Corp., 734 Main Street. Riverside Auto Salvage, 1 Beach Street is hold. Ray's Sales and Service, 4 Morton Lane. Laycock Auto, 1256 Main Street. Fred's Collision, 36 Main Street. So
Slocum
other-
Street.
What did I say?
Main Street.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So we got three holds. Other than that, we're approving the licenses as presented. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
You wanted to have more discussion?
Well,
you?
well, it's on hold right now. Do we have the discussion now, or do when we bring it back?
You can have.
Yeah, well, let's have the discussion now. I will say that Tony's Service Station, in my term as a selectman, the one thing I've gotten complaints about more than anything else in this town is Tony's Service Station and the condition of Tony's Service Station. And, I don't know what this license allows him to do, but until he gets his act together over there and cleans up that property, I'd be hard pressed to approve any, and I don't know what our legal obligations are, but I'd be hard pressed to vote in favor of any licenses for that property. I think it's a disaster. It's not well maintained. It's a junkyard in the middle of town. It's the entrance to the town of Acushnet, and I know we've got unpaid taxes, both business and personally, and I don't know what our rights are as a community, but I've gotten more
unpaid
complaints.
taxes on that particular property.
Unpaid both on that property and personally. I don't know what our
Only
what our
for
rights are.
unpaid taxes on
Okay.
that specific.
But just the condition of the property in the center, it's
don't know
our
that.
front entrance is a problem, in my opinion, so.
He has done some cleanup. I'll give him that much credit. We've had a lot of complaints, we've had discussions, I've had discussions over there. He's done, in the last few months, he's cleaned it up compared to what hole it used to be, right? And I agree, I absolutely agree. Old tires, it's Board of Health issues.
Just cars that don't move.
So, but he's cleaned it up, it is cleaned up better than what it was, let's say, 3 months ago. I'll give him that.
Right, he has made
But-
movement in that direction,
Right, but he's, in as far as, I don't know if we can hold his permit because it's a hole, but I know that we can hold it if he owes back taxes on that property. If he owes back taxes on his residency, you cannot do that, it's not true.
I'd like to explore all of that. if
We have,
could,
we
with town
have,
council.
Lisa's probably got a copy of it somewhere, we've already
Yeah.
explored it.
And so my understanding too of the hold is, these two, the Tony Service Station and the South Main Street, those are a hold, an approval that you guys would be voting that you're approving the license, but you're holding the actual license until they pay the taxes.
No, that's not what I'm voting for.
Okay, so, well, I just want to make it clear which way you're going, whether you're approving it.
Maybe that's what
and
happened
you'll-
last year. Yeah.
Yes, last year they held the license until the taxes were paid, and then they gave it out, or you could vote to not approve.
I'm not sure I know the other property.
What's the other one?
16, that's way down South Main.
Oh, I think I know which one
I
that
think
is,
I
with
know
all the
what
trucks.
it is, but I don't.
Well, those have been held, so we didn't.
But
make a
we're
motion
not
to
automatically,
approve.
I don't
We
think
didn't
we're
make a
automatically
motion.
approved.
No,
The
no, well, that's
motion
what I want to
only
clarify.
Yes.
For all the ones other than the ones that were held, so we
Yes.
held, right? If I
That's
understand this,
correct,
Mr.
right. We
Mr.
held
Roche?
those.
I think the
Yes.
interpretation might have been in the past that we're holding it until they pay their taxes and
Well,
then the
we've
license is
specifically
released.
said that in the past too. We'll hold it until they
And that's not what
pay
I'm,
the
Yeah.
that's
taxes.
not what
Well,
I'm
that's why I
saying.
wanted to clarify.
So we need to send a
know.
letter out to these people and let them know why we're holding their licenses.
Yep, so you are not approving, and if they want to, they would have to come back to the
Unless and until
selectmen.
they're compliant with back taxes and whatever reasons
Yep.
else we can. You gotta check with council on that. I don't know.
I want to talk with town council about the property, that
Absolutely.
particular one.
I think it's only to do with back taxes money owed to the town, but I could be wrong. So it's worth double checking.
Okay, so motion, do we vote? All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye, all right. Reserve fund
One more.
transfer
And,
from the fire department.
I know you left.
He had to go somewhere, so I can take it over, and if you need to discuss it with him, we
Go
can
and
hold
see.
it off. So he's looking for an amount of $53,2256, and it's for vehicle repair. The present balance in that appropriation for the line item is $55,6687. And he's looking for this amount to replace the air compressor on engine 1. And this expenditure is extraordinary and unforeseen. for the following reasons. Failure of the compressor jeopardizes the apparatus braking system. So he kind of gave a memo, I don't know if you guys have all this, but,
We don't.
Yeah.
so, engine 1 is a 1992 pumper
Oh,
deployed
yeah,
at
I've
Station
seen
2.
that, so.
Yep, the vehicle presented with a significant air leak which required repair. The air system, which is the compressor, dryer, governor, and associated hoses, is required to function in order for the brake system to work properly. So essentially,
How much is it in his vehicle repair line item?
5566, so.
55, well, no, I mean as for his budget, he's got a vehicle repairs?
Yeah, so what,
55,
oh, you want
60.
the original total?
He's got a budget, and how much, he doesn't have anything left?
No, he does, so the total in the budget is 5566 in that line item. This would be 5322.
That's an odd number, 5566 for
He
a
might have-
repair vehicle.
He's got expenditures.
Remaining
That's what he has
is what I'm
left.
saying. All right, no
Yeah, so
problem.
this,
So he's got enough to cover it,
he has enough to cover
Yeah.
it, and I believe
But
he,
he's 6 months left in the
but
year.
he's 6 months left in the
Yes.
year.
And I believe-
$44.
I know you're gonna ask about this, whether I believe because it was an emergency with the brakes that he had to
Brakes
get
are
it
important.
fixed.
Thanks.
But he wanted to bring it to you,
That's fine.
because, yeah, I mean, obviously, it's an emergency expense. It doesn't completely clear out his line item, but
Mhm.
almost, and.
Well, he's
the
got
year is
nothing
half-
for the remainder of the year for this last 6
Exactly.
months. I'll make a motion to approve the reserve fund transfer in the amount of $5,322.56 as presented for the fire and EMS as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? That passes. Alright, back to the agenda, Department of Public Works, we did that, Town Administrator's Report.
I just have two announcements that I wanted to quickly make. I know this is on our website, but the DPW is still looking for additional snowplow drivers. We have a shortage this
I'm
year,
sorry.
so if
That's all right.
I
anyone
thought it was fine.
knows anyone that would like to be a snowplow driver for the town, please reach out to the DPW. And the other thing I have is the police is putting on their 9th annual Fill the Bus toy drive. I let them know that I would announce this, that it's going to be December 14th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Acushnet Police Station. So they're looking for new unwrapped toys to fill the bus.
The date of that was? What's it?
December 14th,
Okay.
and they'll be there from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the new police station.
All right.
9 a.m. to 5 p.m.? What's that, the drop off?
Yep, so you drop off toys and they actually fill
So
the bus.
they don't want anybody showing up at any other day but that day?
That's right.
December
It's
14th,
coming
between
Saturday.
9 a.m. and 5 p.m. It's my
That's
son's
right.
birthday, so.
There you are.
All right.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Anything else, Town Administrator's Report? Selectmen announcements, anything, gentlemen?
We meet next week?
Well, this says future business January 7th, but we do have a meeting for the 17th of
We
December.
have a-
So,
Next
yeah.
week, yep.
So our next meeting is the 17th of December at 5 p.m.
That's correct.
What are we doing next week? Oh, no, that's a public hearing, but I know we're gonna meet with Kearsarge
Yep.
next Tuesday, but what else are we doing? You know?
There's a
Never mind.
there's a list of things.
There's a
up on the
list.
board. There's a list.
Okay,
of
never mind.
Golf, I
That's
know
fine.
that golf is on the list.
There's a
That-
bunch of
fine.
things,
yeah,
yeah.
we could-
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall offhand, but
No problem.
we need to.
Okay, that's
All right, is
fine.
there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.